Hello, JVC Northwest community. I'm Greg Carpinello, the new Executive Director here in Portland, Oregon. I will admit that this is not how I anticipated meeting many of you out there. Just until a few months ago, we were planning to meet many of you in Seattle for our annual event. But maybe one of the silver linings of these troubled times is that we're finding creative ways to connect with others. So we're grateful this year to include more people than maybe we would have otherwise in this virtual edition of the For the Four event. So thanks for joining us as we kick off this week of giving. I'm grateful for the ways our volunteers have moved their service remotely and for ways that they have helped their organizations adapt to life online. Our volunteers have shown time and time again over the last few months their creativity, their ingenuity, and their willingness to serve no matter what the circumstances are. And personal growth hasn't stopped, even though service has shifted. I know our JV EnCorps members have moved their group meetings online. And just a few weeks ago, I had the honor of kicking off a virtual retreat for our Jesuit volunteers. As we speak, our volunteers are immersed in our four core values: community, simple living, social and ecological justice, and spirituality and reflection, as we all try to build a more loving and just world. So as we get started, I want to thank especially our sponsors for this event. With their help and yours, we're hoping to raise over $120,000 over the next week. It's a significant number for us, $120,000 to support the 120 Jesuit volunteers and the 120 Jesuit Volunteer EnCorps members who are out there serving our neighbors in need across the region. Your support will also help us to recruit, place, and support Jesuit volunteers next year. With your help, through our volunteers, we can boost organizations on the front lines dealing with critical issues like housing, food shortages, and the crisis that our environment faces. And now, for a little more inspiration to give, I'd like to introduce this year's award winners. The Father Jack Morris Memorial Award memorializes Jack's legacy of dedicated work for peace and justice in solidarity with those living on the margins of society, and his inspiration of thousands of Jesuit volunteers as co-founder of the Jesuit Volunteer Corps movement. This award honors former Jesuit volunteers or friends who are inspired by and live out the four values of JVC Northwest and demonstrate a lifetime commitment to working for the common good and a dedication to the service of others. Today I am so pleased to present the Father Jack Morris Memorial Award to Bill and Diane Whelan. Bill and Diane have lived lives dedicated to the causes of peace and justice. Bill served as a Jesuit volunteer in Copper Valley from 1970 to 1971, and then for an additional year in St. Mary's, Alaska from 1971 to 72. Bill was the first Alaska area director for JVC Northwest and will soon be celebrating his 50th anniversary as a JV. Diane served as a JV in Seattle from 1973 to 74, and then in Portland from 1974 to 75. Brought together by JVC Northwest, Bill and Diane have been longtime supporters of our organization. We are honored to recognize Bill and Diane for all the ways they continue to live out our four core values. Congratulations, Bill and Diane.
Bill and I are happy to be with you, even on Zoom, and we will be so much happier to be with you in person when we get to celebrate JVC Northwest and the wonderful things they do in the world. We are honored to be offered the Jack Morris Award because Jack was a dear and important friend to us and our family. So we have a few examples of the ways that he lived out the JVC Northwest values. Just a couple stories to share. When I was a first-year Jesuit volunteer, I struggled with a lot of loneliness and wondering where God was. Jack shared with me that our spiritual lives flow in and out of consolation and desolation in various degrees throughout our lives. That was news to me. When I grew up, the impression I got was if I was very, very good, I might be able to feel God's presence. So what Jack said was life-changing. He was saying that spirituality is about my being my real self in the real circumstances in my life and striving to love in the midst of that. That was so important that it informed me as I was looking for my life work, which became accompanying others on their spiritual journeys. Jack was committed to social justice, and for him that meant prayer, discernment, and putting his body on the line. The last conversation I had with him, I asked him why he was not pursuing treatment for his cancer. And he said he didn't want to use the money for his care that someone else might need more than he did. Jack inspired me, Bill, and our family to live with JVC Northwest values as a foundation for our lives. We've done that to the best of our ability and hope we've inspired others. One of the greatest joys in our life has been seeing our daughters, Bethy and Lisa, who are also JVs, continue to live these values and change the world for the better. The best legacy we could ever imagine. Bill has a family story about Jack and a few thoughts to share as well. So here's Bill.
Jack used to do quite a bit of driving between Portland and Seattle. And we live in Olympia, Washington, which is the midpoint between those two. And he would stop in the house and have a chat and have a meal. And I remember one dinner at the end of the dinner, we had a bowl of cherries for dessert. And I don't know who it was, somebody, after eating their cherries, spit the pit out on the lawn. Well, Bethy, our 9-year-old, knows a challenge when she sees one. And I remember dessert that evening was Jack on one end of the bench, Bethy on the other end of the bench, and the bowl of cherries in the middle. And the contest was who can spit the pit the farthest out on the lawn. But that was Jack. He could relate so well to the young and the elderly, and both loved him. Concerning JVC Northwest, I was a part of the past. Copper Valley, St. Mary's, Alaska area director. And some of you were a part of that past also. Many of you were not even born when I was at Copper. Hard to believe. Something to consider. What will the future of JVC Northwest be? What innovations will emerge as JVC Northwest branches out, and how could each of us be a part of that? The solid foundation of the 4 values will be the touchstone that all of us share to some degree or other. And that is a heritage to be very proud of. Thank you.
This is the second year of the St. Ignatius of Loyola Award, which honors a Jesuit in the Jesuits' West Province who has been a friend or supporter of JVC Northwest and who has fostered the spiritual growth of current and former volunteers alike. Above all, this award is given to a Jesuit who has dedicated his life to serving with those on the margins and exemplifies living out a faith that does justice. Today, I am thrilled to announce Father Natch Ono as the second recipient of the St. Ignatius of Loyola Award, which is especially fitting since he is named after St. Ignatius himself. Father Natch has been a friend and supporter of JVC Northwest for many years, having served on the board and provided spiritual guidance to Jesuit volunteers at orientation and on retreats. For 5 years, Natch has served as JV EnCorps' Jesuit spiritual advisor and helped deepen the connection to JVC Northwest's Ignatian values. He co-facilitates the Seattle JV EnCorps group, guiding reflections on service, justice, and equity. Natch exemplifies living out a faith that calls us to work for justice, and we are honored to recognize him with the St. Ignatius of Loyola Award. Congratulations, Natch.
First of all, greetings. Thank you for the honor of the St. Ignatius of Loyola Award. I'm grateful to be included in such company as those who have received this award before me. A Jesuit historian wrote a similar sentiment of walking on the paths trod by those who have gone before. Certainly, this is true in my case. I'm reminded of another journey in our Easter readings about the disciples walking to Emmaus, not recognizing Jesus, but afterwards recalling how their hearts were burning when they spoke about the vision which inspired them with a desire to follow Christ. St. Ignatius also followed his great desires to set the world on fire. I believe that the pioneering spirit that now animates JVC Northwest, the 4 pillars of community, spirituality, simple living, and striving for justice in the world comes from the spirituality of Ignatius and continues in the legacy that is now JVC Northwest. Its roots go deep, nurtured by many former JVs and current JVs and now JVC EnCorps members, and many I'd like to call friends of JVC Northwest who support the vision to truly make a difference in the world. I grew up in the era of idealism with leaders such as MLK, Oscar Romero, Dorothy Day, and JFK. A time of discovery, energy, and inspiration, yet also a time of transition and change. I did not realize how much I was influenced by the different signs of the times which only the Spirit can unravel and reweave. Like the disciples walking to Emmaus, I now realize that my path was influenced by a call to action and the words spoken by President Kennedy at his inauguration in 1961. Ask what you can do for your country, and I think he would add, what you can do for the world. Like so many others, I was inspired and followed the path that turned idealism into reality. And then I joined the Jesuits. Currently, I'm involved with JVEs in Seattle. Earlier, I did support work with the JVs in the role of support person and at various houses, but also I participated in orientations and retreats. And during what proved to be pivotal times, I was on the board in 2009 when JVC Northwest discerned the question of consolidating with the other JVC regions to form a national organization. I believe JVC Northwest is a stronger organization for maintaining its roots and unique charism and values in the Pacific Northwest. The 4 pillars of JVC Northwest, I believe, are core values based on the spirituality of Ignatius of Loyola that speaks of care and stewardship. In this global pandemic we are now facing, we are dependent on the actions of all to safeguard our well-being and more than ever to safeguard the lives of others. We see the interconnectedness of the world and the need to come together in support of all of God's creation. Pope Francis, I believe, embodies that sentiment and is our next generation of leaders in this call to care for the poor and for all of God's creation. Leaders will also come from current JVs inspired to serve. I'd like to thank JVC, the former JVCs, the current JVs, JVC EnCorps members and the many who support JVC Northwest. For I believe that you are the real recipients of this award, those who follow in the footsteps of St. Ignatius of Loyola, who inspire others with a generosity of heart, and how you have truly embraced the spirit of JVC Northwest. Thank you for your support and presence with JVC Northwest.
Thanks again for joining us in this virtual kickoff of the For the Four event. We look forward to hearing stories of other volunteers, current and former, and we look forward to your support and your stories of how JVC Northwest has impacted your life. Please visit our website to learn more about how to donate and to track our progress towards our goal of $120,000. I hope you and your families remain safe during this time. Peace and God bless.